Hey there, this is Ari. Welcome back to the Energy Blueprint podcast. Before we get into today's show, I have an incredibly important announcement. This is something that I really haven't been more excited to announce than all the way back in 2014 when I first started the Energy Blueprint. After well over a year of development and testing, we are finally ready to officially launch our breakthrough mitochondrial supplement to the world. This is a genuine game changer in the area of human energy enhancement, and it's called Energenesis. This is actually the first no stimulant, no caffeine, and no sugar energy formula that actually builds up your own body's capacity to produce energy. Instead of working like caffeine and stimulants by giving you a temporary boost of energy for a few hours, but ultimately making your energy levels worse over time, Energenesis actually builds up your own body's ability, your cellular capacity to produce energy. Energenesis got over 20 amazing, powerful ingredients at real effective doses. This is a premium formula that uses actual real effective doses. So this is literally like 23 supplements all in one. And with that in mind, just to mention a few testimonials that people have wrote in after using Energenesis. So this one's from Barbara. She said, I'm a 72-year-old female and I love Energenesis. I have more sustained energy through the day and I'm actually getting my life back. I'm doing things that I haven't been able to do for 10 years. Anya, she said, I really love that it gives me just the right kind of steady and balanced energy. Unlike stimulants, which I can't tolerate, Energenesis gives me a perfect, smooth kind of energy that lasts throughout the whole day. Michelle Catlin, this is one of my favorite ones. She said, Ari, are you getting tired of all the praise and requests for Energenesis yet? I'm on my third bottle and I have to tell you, I haven't felt this good in years. So if you've been struggling with your energy levels and you're looking to get this area of your life handled, and not just to get a temporary boost of energy for a few hours, but to actually transform your energy levels by building real energy at the cellular level, then go get yourself some Energenesis. You can get it at theenergyblueprint.com/Energenesis. So go to that page, check out all the ingredients and all the science behind it, how it works. It's all there. There's about 200 scientific references behind all of the different ingredients in Energenesis. They're all listed on that page along with a lot of the science behind the ingredients. There's also a video explaining it all. Check it all out. Check out the science, then grab yourself some Energenesis and let's get started. I know that you are going to be blown away by the result. The URL is theenergyblueprint.com/Energenesis. And now let's get into the episode. Hey there, this is Ari. Welcome back to the Energy Blueprint podcast. With me today for round two of our conversation that we started last week is Dr. Brian Walsh. And we're continuing that conversation and broaching into a whole bunch of really fascinating and not very intuitive topics and not very commonly talked about topics that are related to some of the biggest keys to human health. And Dr. Walsh is also addressing some of the biggest flaws within the current natural health community, sort of dominant paradigms among practitioners, among health gurus, what he thinks, and I give my opinions too, about where people are going wrong and how they're thinking about things. So I think there's a lot of gold nuggets in this podcast and things, again, that not a lot of people are talking about and thinking about. So I think you'll get a lot of value from this, and I hope you enjoy it. You know, you're such a biochemistry whiz. It's so funny that, you know, we could probably go down a rabbit hole of, I could say, talk to me about bilirubin and talk to me about, you know, this biochemistry marker and hemoglobin A1C and, you know, this marker of glucagon and, you know, yada, yada, yada. And you could talk for an hour on each of those things.
Totally. And I love it.
But we're actually going in the opposite direction here. We're zooming out big picture, health context. And I want to go even bigger picture than where we were just at with purpose and human connection. I think, I'm curious if you agree with me, but I think one of the most, if the single most egregious example where the natural health and functional medicine community has moved in the wrong direction is they've moved in the direction of kind of like a green allopathy, like a operating within the conventional medical allopathic model but just replacing prescribing drugs with prescribing supplements or prescribing this diet or, tracking your macros or all those things you just mentioned, this hormone, that hormone, and supplements for every hormone and neurotransmitter. It seems to me that almost all of the chronic disease burden that we're dealing with in the world today is a result of disconnection from nature, disconnection from our ancestral way of life, disconnection from what we were just talking about, a community, a tribe, where you have a meaning and a purpose. The loss of those connections seems to be the fundamental driver of disease in the modern world. And yet so much of what practitioners are doing right now is not to move people in the direction of reconnecting with those things, but is really just sort of, hey, a pill for every ill, sort of, just instead of prescribing drugs, prescribing supplements for this neurotransmitter, that hormone, this gland, that gland. That's what I perceive to be the biggest flaw in the natural health functional medicine space right now. I'm curious if you agree with me and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call it a flaw. I hadn't thought of it that way. Listen, I mean, and again, so if you pose that same question to, 10 different people that each have their bias, they'll say, well, toxins, it's clearly toxins that are causing all this chronic disease. And there's a bunch of papers to suggest that. And we didn't have any toxins back, however many years ago. And then other people will say, the vitamin D people, well, we're inside all the time. And so we don't get sunlight, so we don't get vitamin D. And, we used to, and that's why we're unhealthy. Then there's, the whole food people, organic soils, crop rotations. They'd say it was that. They'd say we're not moving anymore. So that exercise person would say, well, it's because we're getting less. It's all those things. It's the community. It's being outside. It's movement. It's, whatever spiritual connection that we might have had, or, the perception of ourselves in the world that we live in. But you kind of touched upon this before, man. Like, to tell people don't want to hear, you need to get outside more, do some fresh air, frolic in nature, run around with bare feet in the ground, all those things. They want to hear, like, no, I already do that. I take my hikes. Like, I want to know what diet to follow. Like, what's the best diet? Like, what macros should I follow? What supplements can I take? I'm positive I have candida. Find candida in my body.
And can you run a super comprehensive lab panel on me that will identify my unique biochemistry and tell me the best supplements and diet that are unique to my biochemistry and my genes?
And that's the genetic testing really screwed all that up, quite honestly, is I mean, I want to get into all that, but the claims that are made about those tests and what you can tell from somebody. So I don't think people want to hear that, A. And B, how is a practitioner going to charge for that? Mm-hmm. So, okay, thank you. That's going to be $500. Just go ahead and get outside for about an hour a day. Wait a minute. I charge you, $500 to tell you to go outside and connect with nature again and to, sleep better. But then, and this is how we mess this up. Well, then we're going to get the grounding rod, to stick in the ground so that the mattress that we're on is, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, but that becomes the distraction. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not grounded when I sleep, so I have to be grounded. Like, I'm clearly, the EMFs are like screwing up, and that when I do this, I will be healthy. And that's that same. So I don't want to say it's a flaw of the industry. And listen, I remember, I don't know how long ago it was, learning about white willow bark and the salicylic acid that's natural in that. And I was like, well, wait a minute. If someone has a headache, taking aspirin versus white willow bark, you're doing the same thing. Or it's like you said, I have, instead of taking this beta blocker, why don't you take this? Or instead of taking this, that's been going on for a long time. That is not new by any means. And I had a problem with that way back when I was first learning this, because it didn't seem to be any different. It was the same treat this for that kind of mentality. But we really like to have a scapegoat. In the body, it's usually the adrenal glands. We love to blame a thing. In politics, it's whatever. In religion, it's this. We love to point a finger because then it makes it easy for us, right? Because then we have a finality, we have an answer. But I don't think it's the industry's problem that they do that, because I think, well, if it is, where does it start? Patients are demanding tests and demanding the latest supplements, even though they've tried every single one in the book. And you think like you've run I've had people, gosh, I had a lady one time. She gave me, it was a 200-page PDF of lab tests that she's taken. Wow. 200 pages. This is her, she submits these things to me. And I'm going through this. I'm like, okay, well, what tests have you not run? She was on, I've had people handwrite the supplements that we have like, what 10 supplements have you taken in the past 10 years? And it says like, when C attached, then you know that you're in a big problem. 4 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper handwritten with all the supplements that somebody's taken.
Wow.
And that's what they're currently taking.
Wow.
And I would ask this person, well, what about this? Oh, I tried that. It didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. And so at some point, when you've taken every lab test, when you've literally tried every single supplement, when you've tried every diet, and you're doing all those right things. I have so many patients that are eating right, they're exercising, they're doing all the right stuff, man. All the things that we're told we're supposed to do, but they don't feel well. Is there's some other missing piece. And so people are demanding these things. And so practitioners want to give what they're asking for. You're coming in and you want to test and you want supplements, and I'm going to tell you to go walk outside barefoot. And that's your prescription for the next 30 days. You'd be like, what did I just pay you for that? Mm-hmm. And so I think it is a perspective issue of both practitioners and patients alike as to what it is that they're looking for, what there is they're willing to do, and what they consider health to be. I agree with you, but mm-hmm. I don't think somebody should charge for that advice. That's a 5-page book. Go outside, try to live with some kind of purpose. You know what I mean? Like this.
Well, it is and it isn't. Here's why I somewhat disagree with you. I agree with the big picture of what you're saying. What I've found, because for example, my next book is on sunlight. It's a 300-page book on the benefits of sunlight and the mechanisms of action beyond the vitamin D story of how does sunlight interact with the human body. Sure. And I've spent a lot of time already educating people on that subject, making videos and writing on it and making, for my private audience, the Energy Blueprint members, I've spent a lot of time educating on that. I cannot tell you the amount of people that, of course, they've heard people say, hey, vitamin D is good. Get your 15 minutes a day of sun exposure. But the amount of people who, after reading or watching my material, are like, wow, I had no idea that the science says this, this, and this. And now I've been making a point of getting sun exposure and I feel amazing. I feel so much better and it's helped me so much. And even people who will say, for example, this is the single biggest needle mover in my health. I've tried all these diets and I just wasn't getting any sunlight. And turns out it makes a big difference, just as one example. But my point is only that I think the education piece around the science of the mechanisms of how those things and how those things affect us and why they matter and how big of a magnitude of effect they are on our health, I think can be the difference between somebody actually doing those things or not.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
But here's my question: why do we need a 300-page book with 100 some off references just to get someone to be convinced?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure I could probably do it in 100 pages.
But that's what I'm saying.
Or 50
I think
pages,
that's the problem.
But I personally find it fascinating, and I hope lots of other people will find it fascinating to learn those things too.
To talk an hour about albumin, like bring it on. Love it. It's super, super fun. And to do a 300-page book on albumin, I love those things. But my question to you is if people if you were to take, and I'm not going to talk about like blues or any of that stuff, but if you look back at previous cultures and the things that they did, and everybody agrees that they were healthier, like why does it take a 300-page book on one of those elements? Let's say there's 15. If we could identify 15 elements that previous communities that were arguably far healthier than we are today, why do we need multiple books and just to convince people? We shouldn't. We should just. But that's how I feel like that's why how distracted we are as a culture, both practitioners and patients alike. We're so distracted that we need this Magna Carta of a book on sunlight to be like, oh. when the O should be like, people were healthier back then. This is what they did. Oh, we should do that.
Well, but yeah. So here's where that breaks down. So obviously I personally completely agree with you, but as a matter of convincing other people, this is where I think it breaks down. Some people, to your argument, like let's say the conventional medical community, to the argument that you just made, they'll say, oh, that's a naturalistic fallacy. You can't just say, oh, people in the past didn't get heart disease and obesity and diabetes and neurological disease. Well, there were many things different. Oh, plus those, cavemen used to die at age 27 and anyway,
Right.
and they never lived to old age like us, right? So what I think is going on is the crux of human health is a movement back towards more natural ways of life. And I think that it's not an exaggeration to say, and this has actually been quantified in the US, that over 80% of the disease burden is chronic diseases of nutrition and lifestyle. So I think literally just reverting back to the way we lived 500 years ago would solve 80% of the chronic disease burden. Yet the movement in the culture is one of movement to more technology, more science, more personalized biochemistry analysis and drugs and supplements and devices to alter that personal biochemistry. So we're moving in as a culture, and in terms of the dominant paradigms in the health industry, we're moving in the opposite direction. So I'm, as an individual, preaching that people move in the non-dominant paradigm in a direction that's opposite from the dominant paradigm of the culture and the medical paradigms that we live in. And in order to make that argument effectively, I can't just rely on a sort of naturalistic argument, hey, people used to be healthier and you should do this. In order to convince the modern mind, you have to lay out, here's all the evidence. Anyway.
No, I think it totally makes sense to me. I will say the thing that came, while I agree with you on that, actually, and this is, a conversation that we don't have time for. Is it the knowledge of a thing, or is it the behavior? Is behavior the problem? And then therefore, how do you change behaviors? Because I would say that you could probably take the Joe average person off the street and say, is what you're eating healthy or not? And most people be like, no, they know. I mean, kids are taught that in school, like what's healthy foods, whether it's the pyramid or the plate or whatever it is, but then it comes down to behavior. Like how many people, if we were to survey them, think that exercise is healthy for them? I think the vast majority of people would probably agree with it. Why aren't they doing it?
Right.
And so then it's not a lack of knowledge. It's not and I'm not saying it's a 300-page book. It's behavior. Like, why are you not doing this? Right. If you know that Twinkie Ding Dong or Ho Ho is not good for you, but you're eating it, that's behavior. That's not, and so then it becomes, then that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no time to talk about that.
Right.
Clearly.
Yeah. I mean, that's a super complex rabbit hole of the environmental, how the environment and the culture shapes behavior of a particular population, and what people normalize to as normative behaviors that people just accept as, hey, okay, fine. Yeah. I read that it's not healthy, but everybody does this. So I'm going to.
But yet your 300-page book on sunlight seemed to have changed people's behaviors.
Some,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, by convincing them with enough data to actually convince them to change their behavior, which is that's why it's part of a larger conversation for sure. But no. Anyhow, like it's. I think we covered everything.
Yeah. Is there one more, before we wrap up? I want to ask you: is there one more example of something that you consider the functional medicine, natural health community has really got things wrong, and that you kind of have a message for them?
Yeah, it's getting rid of things that we consider to be old in the replacement of something that's new, shiny, sparkly, and sexier. And so there's a really great paper that is called something about testing in the genomic era. Are we missing the low-hanging fruit? And it was this really great paper written in response to some research that this other group was doing. And one of my passions, at least when it comes to the body, is blood chemistry testing. And the problem that I see in response to your question in the industry is that blood chemistry is old. It's black and white. print. It's ink, black ink on white paper. It's not fancy or sexy compared to these functional medicine labs that come out with these charts and graphs and colors and like 50 pages of reporting. Blood chemistry is like 2, depending on how many markers you get. That they abandon those things. Like, oh, blood chemistry, you can't tell anything out of that. Let's do the fancy, urine, saliva, whatever stool test, and tell you everything about you just with these tests. And I had this, I forget, it was quite a long time ago, but I was like, I'd be willing to bet that there are researchers that are still doing research on some of these quote unquote old markers, bilirubin, albumin. Like, is there anything new in the literature about these markers that we think that we have everything handled with? It's like Pandora's box. I mean, I was reading. I was like, holy cow, like bilirubin is associated with this? Man, why weren't we taught this? Or albumin, or you name it. And so same with supplements. I mean, I always will say, if it's completely theoretical, if you got stranded on a desert island and you could have either, just macronutrients, carbs, proteins, and fats, or a multivitamin, which would you take? I would take the multivitamin because I have enough of that stored on me, carbs, proteins, and fats, that I can break down as fuel as long as biochemically I have the micronutrients to run the biochemical pathways responsible for breaking those things down. And so therefore, a multi is fundamental. I mean, it is not sexy. When's the last infomercial you've seen on a multi? Never, because it's not fancy enough. Like that we abandon, well, I'll put it this way. I see patients and the supplements that they're taking, super fancy glutathione, super fancy curcumin, some whatever, super fancy something. Where's the multi? Oh, I don't take one. Wait, what? You're taking all these like super expensive, fancy, latest, flashy supplements, but you're not even taking a basic multivitamin? But again, it's not just the industry, it's patients. And I don't know what's driving what. But that's the problem is I will run a $400 fancy functional lab. Well, what's your CBC say? Oh, I don't know. I haven't run one. My doctor didn't run one on me. Like, didn't run a CBC? That's one of the most fundamental. It's like a $10 test looking for anemia to see if you even have oxygen to feed your cells and your mitochondria in the first place. So it's the abandonment or replacement of something that was perceived as old, outdated, obsolete for something new, fancy, shining, or exciting. That I will add has zero scientific validity, zero reliability. There's no way that anybody has ever tested to see if there's like a validity, reliability, specific, like nothing on these things. Or
that's an interesting contrast between the standard blood panel and a lot of the functional medicine tests. Is the standard blood panel has an enormous amount of science, validating all of those measures
for decades around the world.
Yeah, and a lot of the functional medicine tests, they spring up and
there's none.
Yeah, unfortunately, with many of them, basically none. Yeah,
and I'm not gonna. That's just the reality. I'm not ripping on them. There's just none.
Yeah,
and nor is there much safety data on some of these supplements. Like I'll just go ahead and say, I don't. Everybody thinks I have a thing against curcumin. I don't technically do, but maybe a little bit. But when you look
only
at
liposomal curcumin.
Well, no, but and I'm not exaggerating on this. Those should be drug trials at that point. When the amount that they're trying to get in somebody's body in this, it might be like slightly cytotoxic amount, which could be good for certain purposes. I'm not saying it's bad. But those should fall under like drug trials at some point.
I think we need to back up just a minute because we're kind of assuming, like I'm familiar with some of your views on what you've expressed on curcumin, but maybe a lot of listeners are not. Can you just back up and explain like the basic concept of differentiating between, let's say, turmeric raw powder versus something like liposomal curcumin extract?
See, to go back to the beginning, I claim like universal ignorance about most topics. Like we all know based on our own personal experience on things or what we read in the scientific journals as best as we can from a non-biased perspective as much as we can. Like God, Mother Nature, whoever one believes in, made this stuff and made us, and we have coexisted for kind of a long time. And I believe that there's some inherent wisdom in that, probably far more wisdom than any one of us. In fact, all of us combined, I'll go ahead and say. And, I once had a friend who juiced an obscene amount of spinach all at once and got so nauseous he threw up. And I was like, well, there's toxins in spinach, like oxalic acid in high amounts is not healthy. I don't care what you've read about it.
First time I juiced, I threw a bunch of garlic cloves in the
Oh
juice.
yeah.
I think because I read garlic so healthy, and then I ran out to the driveway, my first glass of green juice ever when I was a teenager, and threw it all up.
Yeah, like I have zero problem with most things as they're found in nature. The problems potentially become when we isolate compounds. I mean, that's what the pharmaceutical industry has been doing for a long time, synthesizing them, isolating them, and then taking something. There's some papers that call it curcumin or curcumas, and the curcumas are what'll be found in something like turmeric, for example. All sorts of different compounds that maybe or maybe not identified, but these high dose isolated compounds, and then you get liposomal and it passes the digestive system, or nanoparticleized or micellized, so it goes in the fats, or doesn't even, because can get in through a variety of different mechanisms. It's just flooding the body with this compound that in nature it wasn't designed to. Now, I'm not saying that that's bad. I question it. I question a lot of things. I question, I won't get into all of them, but I question a lot of things that that are really popular right now for biochemical reasons. You travel down certain pathways and you think, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't inherently have a problem with anything in its natural form as a spice. I mean, turmeric's amazing, and load up. I don't think there's an upper limit that you could have in your diet because it's not that bioavailable. And some of the benefits that it occurs in the body might be by way of what it does in the gastrointestinal tract or with the microbiome. Who knows what? I mean,
all of this whole thread that you've been on here seems like an extension of the thing we were talking about previously, of like humans thinking they know better than nature, thinking that, we can solve more and more separation from our ancestral ways of living through modern science. And it's like, we got to solve this problem of the poor bioavailability of curcumin by, using all this advanced science to make it, liposomal so it can be absorbed, because in its natural state, it doesn't work. Right. And it's like, it's this hubris of constantly thinking we know better than nature.
Yeah, I will tell you, the older I get, the dumber I think we all are as a race, as a species. Absolutely. And I mean, really, just we maybe shouldn't think as much as we think, because I think we end up making a lot of mistakes. And in fact, recently I was just talking to my wife about this, but I almost wonder I don't know that it's not more evolved, but if maybe what our true strength is compassion. And maybe it's not this huge cranium that we have and the ability to, communicate problems, do all these things, invent things. But perhaps it's like, because we screw so many stinking things up, and we have throughout human history. We've made so many darn errors. But you look at the times of greatness in human history, and it's not usually from the brain. It's usually from the heart and from compassion. And I don't want to get all, ooey gooey on people, because I don't think that's it. But people, I think, would know they know what I mean by that. That gets back to that servant position of giving in a higher purpose and doing something, having a purpose for a greater good. That doesn't necessarily come from the brain. That comes from whatever, and I don't mean to isolate the organs when I say this, but that comes more out of a different aspect of us, I believe. I think that might be our strength, and that. But listen, I question so much of what we do, and just because it's not bioavailable doesn't mean that we should make it bioavailable. Just because when we eat 80% fat and 10% protein and 5% carbs, which I realize doesn't add up to 100, and certain adaptations or things happen in the body, doesn't mean that we're supposed to for long periods of time. Just because we can do certain types of exercise, certain things, it doesn't mean we're supposed to necessarily. But I think, it does go back. We've been wrong so many times before. How the heck do we think that we're right now? I am a very late adopter to new tests that come out and new supplements that come out and fad diets, quite honestly. I'll wait for a decade to see how things shake out first, and then maybe I'll finally jump on it. I still give only 2,000 IUs of vitamin D to somebody with the other fat soluble vitamins, People are like, what are you, stupid? I mean, 10,000 IUs for sure, at least, you got to get them up as high as, but the stuff, the literature that I've read, the pathways that I've thought about, 2,000 IUs is it. And that's all I'm going to give somebody, probably, with the other fat soluble vitamins until proven otherwise, until I'm proven that I'm wrong, that that's too low. That's where I live. So I'm super slow adopter for these things, but it's because we've been wrong so many times before. My suspicion is that we will be again until proven otherwise. If that makes sense.
Brian, you are a brilliant guy. This is one of my favorite conversations that we've ever had. One of my favorite conversations I've ever had on this podcast. And This was just a lot of fun. So thank you. This felt like just kind of you and me geeking out personally, having a fun conversation as buddies. Yeah. And it's cool that I'm in a profession where I can do that and make a living from having conversations like this with brilliant folks like you. So
maybe it's your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, my friend. Really such a pleasure. And where can people reach you and follow your work and give us the full sales pitch of, I mean,
that's not my forte.
I think people would love to listen to more of you and learn more from you. So tell people where they can do that.
Yeah. So our main website right now is metabolicfitnesspro.com. I really cater to practitioners, not so much the average general public. That said, there's some, and I know that these type of people that are the really savvy lay people that aren't necessarily a practitioner that can handle any and all information. We have quite a few of those go through some of our courses too. But we have some workshops we've done that are available online. We have a whole bunch of courses. I think it's almost 100 hours of online video now. Some was done live on that tour that we did last year, which was epic. On blood chemistry, biochemistry, physiology. I'm proud. Well, I'm proud of the courses that I have put together because of the feedback that I've gotten. And it's, people that don't have a science background who think that biochemistry is super scary, but who'll go through the course. It's like 20 hours of biochemistry, and get it, and they'll understand it. And not only will they understand it, but sometimes they're like, wow, I now have a passion for biochemistry. I want that for people, man. I want people to learn about a subject that they're scared of, that they've avoided in their life, and to learn it, not only to learn it, but to get it and understand it such that they want to learn more. Mm-hmm. And on a level inside of me, I believe that we could go at any time. Tonight might be my last day, or I might die, and that's it. So I think you got to do good every single day. You got to show up. You got to make each moment a little bit better than you found it, because your next moment might be your last. You have no idea when that's actually going to be. Probably now more than ever. Who knows? But you might go at any time. So I want to end my days, if I make it through a full day, thinking that, somebody benefited in some way and it has a happier, healthier, more successful existence because of something I did. That would make me just feel good. So that's
Brian, you're like, as I've been listening to in this podcast, I feel like you're like a reluctant spiritual guru. You're you're somebody with great insight, but you're like resisting your own ability to spread those insights. And it's interesting. I think it's beautiful. It's a nice, because there's such a toxic narcissism around people who perceive themselves as spiritual gurus. But I think it's beautiful when people can convey important, beautiful messages about human connection and about happiness, human health and happiness and purpose, without elevating to that, without any of the toxic narcissism around that.
It's not about you. It's just speaking the truth, what you believe the truth to be to people. And it's not about you. I mean, I've always viewed myself as a funnel or a catalyst. I mean, I guess you could say that I'll sit there and I'll do a presentation to a room full of 100 practitioners, and I'm presenting these ideas that are amazing on the PowerPoints, these theories and these ideas, but I don't take credit for a single one, because all I did was I just read the literature that's out there and I put it together in a certain way that made sense to me and came up with a theory that made sense to me. And it made so much sense to me that I felt like I had to present it to other people. So it's not my ideas. It's like a conduit. It might be a better name for it, is I'm not saying anything. It's not me. Like these are truths I believe that exist in society, or as in humanity, it would be a better word. I take no credit for them. It's not my thoughts. So anyways, yeah, I mean, and back to the courses, like we have some, I actually talk about purpose in the end of one of level 3, the blood chemistry course we have, as a part of a bigger message within blood chemistry. But yeah, that's where people can find us. And
it's metabolichealing.com.
Nope, I'd probably take you somewhere else. Metabolicfitnesspro.com.
Metabolicfitnesspro.com. Okay,
Yep.
awesome. And I know that that this was cool where this podcast went, and we went very big picture health, and I love that. I know that you're huge on biochemistry and the details of albumin and bilirubin,
Yep.
and you're talking about a lot of cool stuff that very few people are talking about. I'd love to do a part 2 with you sometime soon and go deep on that side of things as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, my friend. Really such a pleasure. And to everybody listening, hope you enjoyed this and hope you will check out Dr. Walsh's material. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Ari.
Hey there, this is Ari again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you found it valuable, please share it with your friends, share it with your family, help me get the word out there. Also, if you're on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell to get notifications every time we release a new video or new episode of the podcast. And if you're listening to this, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for supporting my work at the Energy Blueprint. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you in the next one.